Can't do it. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks. Do it. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
Let's go.
Hungry sandwich in my tummy wummy. With Cheetos on top, please. Ding!
How dare you? What's up? What's up? Which is a hungry dungry sandwich in my tummy wummy with Cheetos on top. Ding! Yo, what's up? All right, today we're doing David Fincher. We're going to do David Fincher analysis. And I just finished watching The Game. I thought I wasn't going to include that one in there, but I'm going to include that, okay? So today we're doing Ice Cold Noir, Neo-Noir, Neo-Noir, Coldwave, Noir, and I'm going to be doing Panic Room, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and, sorry, I was distracted by the Boomer TV because I'm your number one fan. I'm your number one fan. I'm your number one fan. Misery is on the Boomer TV. But watch this instead. What's up, y'all? So, shouts out to the members because last night we did a fun stream. We did a fun members only stream, first members only stream, and we did David Fincher's The Killer. So, shouts out to everybody who was there. Shouts out to his family. But today we're going to do Coldwave Noir. And that is my best description for the aesthetic of David Fincher. And it's an appropriate time to do it, I suppose, with the new movie out. I'm not going to be going over the new movie. If you want to see that, you got to go and get the membership. You can get a membership in there. You can get the Ace of Bazed membership. You can get PBR Street Gang, $25 a month. Ace of Bazed, 10. Or just get the basic. High IQ Book Enjoyer, 5. Or, better yet, this is all I'm going to say about this, but all I'm going to say is, better yet, you can support me directly because I need it. Look, I got my one Red Bull. I got my one Luminate Confirmed Red Bull. And I got my McD's free coffee. Free iced coffee. I never really drink coffee. You always see me drinking Red Bull, but you got to make do. You got to make do. So look, where should we start? Let's start off with Panic Room. So we're going to be talking about these three films. The Game a little less so, even though The Game is great. But mainly we're going to be talking about Panic Room and especially The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. So I thought we'd start off with Panic Room. We're going to go sort of sequentially, I suppose. Well, The Game is before those. So we're going to go middle to end to we'll talk about The Game at the end. So Panic Room is early 2000s film, and it's interesting because it's a post Big Nine film, of course, but you see the Zound you see Zound in the opening shots, and actually the film has exterior shots of the before and after. And of course, one thing that comes to mind when I'm watching this is it's got Jodie Foster and hi, Dr. Lecter. I played a streetwalker. And of course, she's back in New York. But, whereas Taxi Driver took place, I suppose, in the Bowery or East Side, in the East Village, this takes place on the Upper West Side, near the park in a brownstone. And the reason Fincher did this movie the way he did is because his previous film, The Game, was it The Game? Yeah, The Game involves international. There's so much, international shooting, I suppose, that he wanted to do an insular film. But you can see how complex and complicated the film is because one thing that's interesting is that they built the whole set, all the interior shots, and they claim they spent $15 million on the interior shots. Now, you could build the entire house for that. Well, not now, but back then you could. And $15 million could put a lot of people in actual homes. So it's interesting how far people are willing to go for art. And this was a hit. It was a successful movie. It's really good. It's a really well done film. I saw it in the cinema at the time. I saw it with my sister. And it's got the best one in the film. I mean, Forrest Whitaker is great in this film. Jared Leto is great in the film. Dwight Yoakam really is fantastic. And he plays the bad guy, Dwight Yoakam, the country singer who spends most of the film. He's literally unmasked in the film, but he spends most of the film with a balaclava on. Kristen Stewart. This has got to be Kristen Stewart's best film, even though I've talked about I am a fan of Twilight. The reason that we can't go out in the sun is not what you think. It's because we shine like diamonds in the sun. Mouth-breathing Kristen Stewart, though, is really good in this film. She's young in the film, and she's great. She's really good. She's plays a diabetic daughter who is wily and is great because she's great in the film because she is intelligent and grounded, whereas her mother is broken from a divorce to a pharmaceutical guy. Right, that's who he is. He plays a big that thing, a big P. Let's call it. He plays a Dr. Flossie type in the film. Right. And so what happens is we start off the film, we get right into it. First of all, this was one of the first films that has this a later Soderberghian quality of opening shots with overhead shots and sort of mid-level shots, skybound, looking at the Manhattan skyline with names as large as the buildings, which is saying something about Hollywood. It's interesting aesthetically, but it shows you that the actors are monumental and that it also provides a contrast to what we're about to see. So we see the Manhattan skyline, we see the big buildings, we see skyscrapers, but then the rest of the film is spent insular. It's inside this brownstone. And to buy a brownstone now, I mean, look, my only frame of reference is this: that think of inflation and all this stuff, and they spent 15 million on the interior shots. I don't know how much it would cost to build the house, but I lived with my three friends in Alphabet City in the East Village just after this film was released, and we paid, I think, somewhere around $4,000 a month for a fifth floor walk up, and that was pretty cheap at the time. I mean, that apartment now, it was great. It was a great apartment. That apartment now, and I didn't even have the biggest room. My friend, we walked in, and of course, my best friend said, "This is mine. I'm taking fives on this room." But of course, he paid the most for that room. But he had his room was big. It looked out in two directions. But we had a great apartment. That apartment now, though, because of the gentrified neighborhood, would certainly cost. I don't know. I don't have any idea how much it would cost. I'm sure they renovated, but it would be a lot. It would be a lot. We're talking about New York. So a brownstone on the Upper West Side would be very expensive. But that gets taken care of in the plot because we learn what happens is we see the opening sequence and we see that it's Jodie Foster. I'm a streetwalker, Dr. Lecter, with Kristen Stewart, her daughter, and they go and they're late to a showing and they meet up with this woman, and then she is arranged for a showing of this place, and the guy showing him the apartment, he's probably the best guy in the movie. He's an Englishman, slick back Englishman, vampire dude, with a Burberry Mac on, who says, "If I could show you the rest of the apartment, it would be optimal." In other words, they're pushing him. They're pushing him hard. And he's like, "You won't get a better price than this. It's only exclusively on the market for right now. You must make an offer if you want it. I'll show it to you in the interiors if you wish." But it turns out to be a very, very cool house. And that guy's like in The Bold and the Beautiful or something. So they take a look around at the house. They go in, it's a typical brownstone. And they go inside, and it's fantastic. Huge, huge living space. And, of course, there's a little backyard area. One thing that bothers me, I got this from my mom. One thing that bothers me about watching home shows is that, yeah, I see you, Zach. One thing about watching home shows is that they started depersonalizing the home building shows and the real estate shows by saying, this is the living area, this is the bedroom area, this is the kitchen area. Everything's an area, right? Instead of just saying this is the bedroom, the kitchen, the living room, as they used to do before everything became a home dwelling unit, which annoys me. But we see the home living area, the living dwelling space, and this is not Pod City. This is a 19th century built classic brownstone Upper West Side. And of course, the selling point is they walk up into the bedroom area and he says, "Do you notice anything? Do you notice anything?" And Jodie Foster walks over to the mirror, of course. Remember, as always, we talked about this last night, and we talk about this almost every time, that the house, the best example of this was probably in the Wuthering Heights stream, but the house, the home, functions as an exterior symbol, an outer symbol of the character's inner state. So, of course, we get the muted aesthetic. It's brown. There's lots of beige. Her life is there's normality, but it's been thrown off. She's getting a divorce. We're going to see the sort of fractured mentality later with the breaking of the mirrors. But she walks up to a mirror, and of course, one thing we don't see a frontal shot of her looking in the mirror, so we don't get a glimpse into who she is yet. It's a profile shot. And she looks at the mirror and she says, "This room is smaller than it should be." And he says, "Very interesting. You're the only one I've ever showed the home to who has noticed such." And he pushes on the mirror. And of course, then we go through the looking glass in a sense, but it opens up and we walk into a panic room. And now, if you were around at this time, I mean, at least for me, I think this came out in around 2004. And is it 2004 or 2002? Maybe 2002. But when the film came out, it was the first time that I was aware that the term panic room was introduced into the zeitgeist. I mean, it became a thing. And this was because this sort of took over from the nuke bunkers and the JFK era Cold War bunkers, and then it became panic room because of Y2K, and and then of course Big Nine, and so this was a big investment for people who can afford such. And so they go into the panic room, and we see that there is a closed loop. There's a sort of a CCTV um, TV bank, and then we know that there are cameras everywhere. There's an intercom system, very early 2000s, and then there are big boxes full of various and sundries, and it has its supposed own ventilation system, which ends up being just a vent to the outside from the house, up where you wouldn't suspect it or where a ladder would be. But it's pretty well done, and it's solid steel. So they say very cool, and they buy the house. They take it, and of course he asks, "What may I ask it is that you do, Miss Streetwalker?" And she says that her husband is in Dr. Flossie's, and they're going through a divorce. So of course she can afford this, and no second thought. So they take the house, and then it instantly goes into their into their opening night, right? Maddie says, "I can get lean cuisine anytime I want one." Well, you are living high and mighty, fella. You are certainly living high and mighty, because even if I wanted one, I could get a lean cuisine right now. I already ate my dollar menu for the day. It's cold out here on these streets. It's a cold world. So it's the first night, and they've got their basic setup. They've got boxes in the house with their name on it and a couple other things, but that's it. But the house has been furnished in this quick time jump with some beds. Kristen Stewart is asleep, and then Jodie Foster's in the master bedroom, and she's turned towards the windows. But then we see behind her, and we see at the opening at the sort of window by the front door, we see a couple of silhouettes and shadowy figures outside. We hear some ladders set up, and then we get entryway into the house, and it's full on B&E now, because here comes Forrest Whitaker, and Forrest Whitaker walks in, and he's got his work uniform on. Why is he wearing his work uniform with his name on it for a night B&E? It's very strange. But it gives us, the audience, an indication of the fact that that's how they know their way in, because we're going to learn that there's a trio of guys. It starts off as a duo. It's him. He breaks into the house through the roof, right? He's got a little Jimmy. He breaks in, and then we see Jared Leto, and Jared Leto walks in with cornrows, and this is one of Jared Leto's good, best roles. I think it's very good. This was when he was still a character actor, and then he made his way into leading man territory later on with his big Marvel roles and everything else. But he's cool in this. He's got a great line. How can you live in New York City and not have a single Percocet? He says. But he comes in, and he's the leader of the group, and Forrest Whitaker is the safecracker / he's the guy who knows the ins and outs of the house. And then we see there's another guy who walks in, and that's Dwight Yoakam. And Dwight Yoakam we're going to learn that it's Dwight Yoakam, but he has a balaclava on, and he's going to be the enforcer, point man here. He's going to be the security guy. So he comes in, and Forrest Whitaker's like, who the fuck is that? Who's this? Who is this guy? Interesting. We just talked about Forrest Whitaker last night with Ghost Dog. We talked about Ghost Dog, Way of the Samurai. Great movie. in relation to the killer, lone assassin, contract killer. But here we have these three guys, and instantly Forrest Whitaker's face is likable. We know that he's going to be the friendly character in this, even though he's the bad guy. He's the bad going to be the bad guy with a heart. Dwight Yoakam is going to be the cold. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me. Okay, fella, I get you're totally psychopathic, right? Well, they come in and then they're walking around. They're kind of creeping around the house. They're not doing hey, well, you know what we should do, man? It would be fantastic. We should go and do some creepy crawlies around Cielo Drive, man. They're not doing that. They're just stomping around these hardwood floors in this house because they assume that nobody's moved in yet, even though the boxes are all there. But they walk up. He walks into the room. He sees Kristen Stewart asleep. We see Forrest Whitaker close the door slowly. That's the moment, by the way, when we know he's going to be a good guy. Even though he's a bad guy, we know he's going to have a heart because when he walks into the room and he sees Kristen Stewart asleep in the bed, he looks and we see recognition in his eyes that this is fucked up. He shouldn't be here. And then he closes the door instead of doing what Dwight Yoakam would probably do, which is immediately start blasting and taking him for ransom or whatever he's going to do. But, then we see, there's a great shot. There's a shot of Jodie Foster asleep in the bed. We see her face, and in the background, we see the silhouette of Forrest Whitaker in the doorway, out of focus, and then it goes horizontal to vertical, and the angle has switched because now we're in this vertical house. We're not just lying asleep with her point of view in the bed. Now we're going to be going up and down the stairs in terms of the narrative, and we're sort of out of sorts, if that makes sense. So she doesn't notice, and he kind of slips back out of the doorway, right? And he goes back down, stomps downstairs with his boots on. Look, man, that's one of the things that kind of gets me about the movie is that it doesn't matter how big the house is. If you got hardwood floors and there are people asleep, right? Remember when you were a kid and your parents are asleep upstairs, you're not stomping down the stairs when you're trying to sneak around or sneak outside or whatever, or sneak in, right? You're tiptoeing down the stairs. Every floorboard makes a creak, but these guys it's a movie, so they're stomping down the stairs. We got a problem here. There's people in the house. What the fuck do you mean there's people in the house? They look around now, they see the names on the boxes, and they see that, this was your area. Right? So there's already conflict among the three of them. Well, they start going up the stairs. We hear a basket. One of them accidentally kicks a basketball. And because Kristen Stewart plays the daughter in this, and she's on her scooter, right? She's scooting around the house. Please, if you would, tell your child to stop doing that infernal racket machine around the house. Hey, kid, knock off the razor scooter. And, of course, she's got a basketball. She's active. She's a kid, right? So, but what that shows in that scene is that innocence foils the robbers' entryway and their ascension through the house. One thing about that, the ascension through the house, is that I find it interesting how many of David Fincher's films work in a kind of almost an allegorical Masonic ritual, sort of a Masonic allegory, not specifically a Masonic, but they work as a kind of initiation. The game is that. That's what the movie The Game is. But this is like there are levels of the house. There are archetypal things that they have to go through in the house, and each time they're foiled by specific like talismanic objects. Now that's with any story. I understand that. I understand that. But it's much more, so they play a much more, inanimate objects play a huge role in David Fincher films, unlike they're given a sort of an impact and a weird ability to change the plot that other films don't really have, if that makes sense. Jethro says definitely in 7. Definitely in 7. Yes, you're absolutely right. So the basketball, one of them kicks the basketball and it bounces down the stairs. Jodie Foster wakes up. She's woken up in the middle of the night. She gets her little bottle of Evian with the label facing the camera. Nice product placement there. Plastic bottle of Evian. Do you remember the time when everybody started drinking water out of started drinking Evian. I remember because it was a thing with Hollywood, right? What's my motivation here? Where's my Evian? They would say. And then it became Dasani, and everybody made a big deal of how it was, owned by that company. And then eventually everybody started drinking from water bottles. But I remember that being a thing. And this movie is sort of in the midpoint of that. It's after that's happened, but it makes a point of showing us that. And so she wakes up, gets her drink of water, walks into the panic room, and kind of hastily looks at the cameras and sees these three figures in the house, and then hears the basketball. So now she matches her auditory sense with her visual, and she knows that this is real. So she is awakened. It's interesting what they do there. She's awakened out of a dream state by walking through where the mirror would be, and then looking at the kind of mirror television, and then the dream quality of the faded television screen kind of passes over into reality, and she wakes up, and she immediately goes, grabs her daughter, wake up, she splashes her with water. That's why the Evian's there. She splashes her with water. She says, get up. They run, and the guys have to run up 3 flights. I guess the flights of stairs are huge because they take a long time going up and down the stairs in this. And they run upstairs to try and get him. She's knocked some pillows and blankets out of the way of the laser lights that so she can shut the automatic steel door. She can punch that red button, close that door. And now they're locked in. And they're safe, right? They're in their panic room. Well, this is interesting in the plot because she gets on the intercom and says, get out of the house. You can have anything you want. Get out of the house. There's nothing in there anyway. And then they write on a, poster board, because the intercom's not two-way. They write on a poster board, what we want is in that room. Well, what are we supposed to think of this? If we were in their place in the panic room, we would think, well, they want us. So what are we going to do here? Right? But as long as they're in there, then they're fine. But we learn from the robbers basically that what they want is the fortune that the previous owner has left in the panic room. It's somewhere in the panic room. So there's going to be a safe. And one of the things is, just think about it logically. Like the previous owner, he went to the trouble of building this house, and then he's got this panic room, and you walk in, and there's not Mac 10s on the wall. We don't see food buckets everywhere. We see a couple of things, and this is like early 2000s, but post Big Nine. So what kind of guy is this who had the house? Is he going to have cash in there? Is he going to have gold? What's it going to be? Well, you probably figure, and you'd be correct to figure so, that it's going to be bearer bonds. He's going to have bearer bonds. And, right, remember in Heat, German bearer bonds. We sell them back to him, collect the insurance, sell them back to Roger Van Zant, 15 cents on the dollar. Make what we made plus 15 cents on the top. So they got to get in the room. But to get in the room, there's no way to get in the room because Forrest Whitaker is one of the guys who helped design the panic room. And so then it becomes a movie about using opportunity to get the people out, and they're all locked. They lock themselves into the house. We see that on the video screens while Jodie Foster and Kristen Stewart are locked in the panic room. So they're locked in for safety, but now they got to get out. And even if they get out, how can they get out of the house? So it presents an interesting conundrum, right? Well, then what ends up happening is basically that they figure various ways of getting them out of the room. They flood the room with propane gas, which I don't think works the way it does in the film, but whatever. There's a propane tank outside that he sees because there's a barbecue, outside. There's a little, you can have barbecues outside because there's a little yard, which is obviously very rare in New York. When I looked out the back of my apartment, it's like there was this dystopian urban hell octagon hole in the middle. Like this apartment surrounded this thing, and everybody would just throw their garbage out the window straight into this hole. New York is great, right? And of course, Yeah. Yes. So Last Man Standing says the thing about no father and all that stuff. Well, yeah, and that's absolutely true. But the and that goes throughout Fincher, by the way, and that's going to play a big role in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. This sort of subversion of gender norms and all that. But s- regardless, it's presented as a normal situation where things happen. People get divorced. She moves into the house, and then we have to see who's going to survive. So it becomes a survival situation, a self defense situation. There's a what's her name? There's an Audrey Hepburn movie that this is similar to, and so it's not totally new, and this is it's not a totally new concept, but it is new in many of the ways that it's presented. And so so then what happens is they flood the room with propane, and there's a fire blanket in there. They uh Jodie Foster like has a lighter, and she like gets up, climbs the thing, takes the thing out of the wall, and then lights it, and then that blows Jared Leto's face off of the wall, and he gets injured, and then he's real pissed. And then he goes around looking for a perk. Meanwhile, Dwight Yoakam says, "Calm yourself. Get a hold of yourself, man." Right. So it's kind of with the three guys, it becomes they're playing different dynamics. It becomes a contest of who is the most logical, who's the most ruthless, who's the most resourceful. And Jared Leto doesn't really fit into this paradigm. So eventually he gets smoked because he goes downstairs. They say they're out of here. They can't break into the place. There's nothing they can do. And then he mentions snitching on somebody, and then he's walking towards the door, and Dwight Yoakam aerates him. Right? He's got a Walther PPK, by the way. And so he's gone. So now it's just the two guys. And Forrest Whitaker and Dwight Yoakam are obviously um it seems Forrest Whitaker is a thief without honor, but he wouldn't trust Dwight Yoakam, but they still got to get in the room. Um then we see that the totally neurotic mother starts to question how are you? Are you is your blood sugar okay? How are you? Are you getting nervous? And Kristen Stewart as the child forced to be an adult as a result of her parents' broken marriage and her mother's neurosis says, "I'm fine. Just stop questioning me about it. I'm fine." She's very grounded, right? But eventually, she does go into a diabetic, shock. She's going to go into a coma, and of course, the medicine is on the outside. But there are many ways they could have solved this. So here was my thought process. There are many ways that this could have been solved because if she had just been patient and watched them go back downstairs and spend all that time downstairs arguing or any other time, because that's how she makes use of it. She waits for them to go downstairs, runs out of the panic room, grabs the medicine in the fridge, and then runs back. But even when she does that, she opens up the fridge, opens up the kit, makes sure that the little kit opens the kit up, makes sure the needle's in there with the diabetes medicine, right? With the insulin. We need insulin. What movie is that from? Cliffhanger? Remember John Lithgow in Cliffhanger when he calls the fake call in? We've been in a crash. We need insulin. Why not just go in, open the fridge, grab the whole thing, and run back in, and also grab your cell phone while you're at it? Like she had plenty of time to do that, and it would have been much more effective if she hadn't have like been banging all around the house. Instead, she could have just night walked silently through the house, gotten the thing, and then gone back into the panic room. Also, your first night in the house and you got a panic room, make sure that you hook up the damn phone line the first night, right? And the other thing is, don't put a pillow and a pillowcase and a blanket in front of the motion sensor. Like you're just going to leave it there of all places in the room. What are you talking about? But you know how Fincher takes care of this. You know how he solves this little conundrum? Because the movie's called Panic Room. So the people are panicking. So she's sort of out of control. She's panicking. She's doing whatever she can. So she's not being silent, even though she should. I figured that's how he sort of made up for that, right? She's got a Nokia phone. Yeah, you got to hook up that landline because apparently there's a landline. And well, they are in a steel cage, so there wouldn't be cell service, I suppose. Even though now they'd have a Neuralink right inside. If you were people able to build a panic room inside a brownstone in New York, you definitely have a Neuralink. Right. So what happened? Then the husband. Oh, by the way, they got phone service because Jodie Foster did manage to cut through the thing, and then I have no idea what I'm doing, Dr. Lecter. She hooks up the phone line. They pull it through the wall, and she makes a call. Of course, she calls 911, and they put her on hold, which, by the way, is very realistic. I've talked about that before, right? With the motorcycle guy. Remember that happened? That is realistic. Hold, please. So then she hangs up, and then she calls her husband. Instead of calling 911 back, she calls her ex-husband and gets Nicole Kidman on the phone. Did you notice that it was Nicole Kidman on the phone? And she says, "Put him on the phone, bitch." Wow, Mom, you're so adamant, right? So she puts her on the phone and says, "There are 3 men," but the phone gets cut off. There's a great scene. Well, okay, so I'll get to that. Well, so then what happens is the cops show up to the house, or no, I'm sorry, the dad or the ex-husband slash dad, Kristen Stewart's dad, shows up to the house with his also wearing a Burberry Mac and a scarf, right? Because he's a Dr. Floss, the executive, I suppose. He didn't come over he didn't come over strapped up. Instead, he came over. Oh, what's going on here? He looks. You know who he looks like? That actor looks like. Who is the guy who was the head of? Oh my gosh, he was in one of the European scandals. And he was like one of the P2 guys. And he was the head of was he the head of the European Soccer League? He was like the executive in charge of that. What was that guy's name? White-haired guy. Remember he got in trouble for sort of eyes wide shut type stuff. Well, that's what the guy looks like. And anyway, so he shows up, and they immediately, who the fuck is this guy? Says Dwight Yoakam. They don't ask him. They just take out his wallet and look at his ID, and then they look at the boxes, and they realize that's her husband or ex-husband or whatever. So then Dwight Yoakam beats him to within an inch of his life, and Forrest Whitaker's like, don't do that, because not Berlusconi, because he's a guy like Berlusconi. He's got an I. His name like starts with an I. What's his fucking name? I can't remember. But anyway, so they can't smoke the guy, because then they'll have no reason to come out of the panic room, right? Well, anyway, he pretty much does that. The guy's a total weakling, right? He walked into a self-defense situation, and he was not able to handle himself. And then he's just sitting there. By the way, he's the worst shot ever. Yo, shouts out to Melly for gifting 5 memberships. Really appreciate that. To Nico, Jesse, Bill Hicks, Airy Fairy, and Twizzard. Yo, shouts out to you all. Big time shouts out to Melly. Thank you so much for gifting those memberships. Hey, welcome to the club. Please let me know after the stream is over what you want me to do. If you want me to do regular streams like we did last night, when you want me to do the next one, what you want me to do. You want me to do, what book do you suggest? What movie? I'm listening to you guys. You guys are now high IQ book enjoyers and the like. So really appreciate that. I'm going to listen to you. Give me ideas. I'm not necessarily going to follow up on those. You got to give me good ideas. Got to give me something that I find relevant. No, I'm just give me some good ideas for things to cover. What you want me to do. I've been looking into another thing, by the way, so that we can do another system, so we can do riffing. I really want to do some movie riffs. But anyway, what happens is, Kristen, you got to know that dude's name. He was the head of like the European Soccer League or whatever. And maybe he was IMF, and he has like an I. I'm not giving much. He had an I in his name, and he was convicted of eyes wide shut activities. What the fuck is that guy's name? Excuse my language. Affiliates won't be happy with that. It's not a family audience, but I promise I won't do it again. All right. So anyway, look into that for me. Somebody, please. Anyway, it's not important. But so what ends up happening is they Jodie Foster comes out to get the phone. She'd already come out to make the phone call, and they end up getting back into the room. We have a switcheroo. We have a crisscross crisscross, right? And the bad guys are stuck in the panic room with Kristen Stewart, and of course, she's streetwalkers on the outside, and then so then she's got to get her insulin. Dr. Lecter, you got to give her insulin. So Forrest Whitaker's like, I've only seen this on TV. I don't know what to do. I've only seen it. How do you do Forrest Whitaker? I've only seen this on TV. I don't know how to do this. Dude, just take the fucking cap off and put it right in her thigh. I know it goes in this tummy. It goes right in the tummy wummy. Just give her the insulin. Who doesn't know how to do that? He says, what'll happen if I don't give this to you? She says, coma and death. Duh. You never seen diabetes before? You never seen Wilford Brimley? My man tells you how to do that. Yeah, so. Yeah, is that the guy living the dream? Is that the guy? God, what the fuck? I'm going to think of that guy's name. Anyways, so he's probably going to be a guy who did none of those things, or he did do them, but he's going to be involved in some other organization that I'm totally off on. But anyway, so she gets the insulin, she lives, and then we get outside of the room, and then Jodie Foster goes on full self-defense mode, hooks up a lamp, puts it in her husband's lap. He gets the gun. He's got the Walther. He's a terrible shot. He misses all the shots. And then finally we end up with, and there's a scene with the cops when the cops show up. I liked this scene. This one was good. The reason I like this scene, so the cops show up and they're like, hey, we got a report of a fucking disturbance or some shit here. You calling us in the middle of the night here. Big Mrs. Richie Fancy Pants in a brownstone. Of course, we came right away. But no, they're not like that. But the main guy, the main cop, is good though. I like this actor because he says, "Ma'am, if there's something you need to tell me and you need to send me some sort of a signal, maybe you should blink." And she's like, "Dude, just fucking blink. Just blink." Remember, the intercom doesn't work the other way. They're just watching you on the camera. So why didn't she say, yes, call everybody, call SWAT, tell them to come here and don't come busting through the room because my daughter's up there. Just tell them, right? Or whatever. Anyway, there are many differences, but of course they're panicking, and she's just focused on getting her daughter out alive. So I accept that in the plot. I'm willing to suspend my disbelief on that. So the cops go away, but of course they're going to come back with SWAT. And the reason I liked this scene, I thought it was truthfully done, was because at the time here, there was a similar event that happened, and it was huge. There's a store that I used to go to when I was a teenager. It was called Exile, and they had all kinds of like punk stuff. I like, I was into punk when I was like in middle school and stuff, and then they owned a store in one of the cool parts of town. This husband and wife, and they were home invaded, and they had 2 daughters. They did not make it. None of them made it. And the grandmother dropped the daughters off, and apparently the wife was like standing at the door and did not. She was too scared to make any kind of signal. So so what happened was they all were gone. As a result of that, the worst possible outcome happened. So I thought this was truthful, that she would try and placate the home invaders just for the sake of her daughter, and and this actually plays a role. We talked about this last night, but also it plays a role in in the plot of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, because Stellan Skarsgård in the film is going to say something to the effect of that. Your fear of causing offense or breaking decorum outweighs your sense of safety, which is totally true in people. That is absolutely true. Right? Yeah. Yes, exactly. I got here, Dr. Lecter. I was transported here on a hadron collider machine that sent me to the Carl Sagan Outlands out in Jupiter space system in the ever-moving hexagonal swirling Satan poles of Saturn beyond Jupiter, right? Even though it got blown up, but Jake Cockadoodie Busey blew it up. But then there was another billionaire with the exact same thing somewhere else in the world, so I still got here, Dr. Lecter. She gets transported to contact. Yes, Dominator. So that's a good one, Dominator. So anyway, what happens is at the end of the film, at the climax of the film, and it's a great climax of the film, we have Dwight Yoakam with a sledgehammer, both hands on his fingers got cut off in the panic room door, or they got smushed or whatever. But then he ends up dodging all the bullets from the dad. And then he has a sledgehammer arced above Jodie Foster, who's about to come down. And Forrest Whitaker, who has found the $22 million in bearer bonds and has left, comes back into the house, and he gets rid of Dwight Yoakam. So he ends up being the bad guy with a heart, right? And now as a result of that, he runs back out of the house, and then SWAT arrives, and then they catch him. And the end of that sequence of the film is the money, the bearer bonds, just swirling around in this cyclonic movement, floating off into the sky. And it's interesting because you can't help but think of tones of Big Nine with that happening, because of the paper flying everywhere in the air, or of the fact that they went through all these shenanigans just for some money, right? These bad guys they're so bad, they're willing to go through all this shit just for some money. And at least Forrest Whitaker was the one with some heart, who obviously has a home life, and that's why he has sympathy for the daughter, because I think he has a sick daughter at home. That's why he's doing this. And now look, we live in a world where, if things were bad then, right, they are very bad now, but hopefully these aren't regular people who are pushed to the brink, right? These are career people who are going to do this anyway and are totally amoral. But Forrest Whitaker's not. And so he ends up caught, but he lives. And the family lives. And even the ex-husband lives. So then the final sequence is they're outside again in the autumn in New York. An Englishman in New York. Do you know David Fincher directed that music video? And we see them in autumn, and she is reclining on, she's in her mom's lap, and they're picking out a new place to live. And she says, "This one's on the east side, on the west side, and you don't want to move there." And it's great how Kristen Stewart doesn't have to say anything. No, she's not going back to the west side. They can go to the east side now. They can go to the upper east side, and they can find a place. And that's it. And the film ends. And Fincher always ends the movies in these kind of quick cut scenes where there's not a total packaged resolution. It's kind of like, it's almost like this fatalistic Albert Camus thing where they live through this existentialist crisis and now the movie's over. And that's it. It's not tied up in a nice, neat little bow with something clever at the end. It just kind of ends. And so I thought that, it's a great movie. It really is very well done. It's very well done. So let me see if I can find the guy that I'm thinking of. Not Lagarde. Who was the guy before Christine Lagarde? Maybe he was head of IMF. Head of something European. Head of European. Give me 1 second, you guys. It's going to drive me crazy. No, not Platini. Not Sepp Blatter. God, was it the FIFA guy? No, it wasn't him. I'm never going to find this guy. I'll have to come back to it. Yo, shouts out to... Hold on, let me go back to this. Shouts out for the super chat right there. Give me 1 second. I'm going to read super chats at the end, but I'm going to get to this one right now. Shouts out to Being in Motion, who sends 10 quid. Says, glad to catch you live. Live, brother. Love your work. Do you have some kind of film list? It'd be great to see which films you dig. All the best from Liverpool. Oi! Shouts out to Being in Motion from Liverpool. Shouts out to the Scousers in Liverpool. Thank you so much for that 10 quid. And a film list? No, I'll put together a film list, though. I mean, I've talked about my favorite films and films that go into specific genres, but that's a good idea. We need to probably do a top films and books list at some point. Jerry mentioned that as well. We probably need to do that at some point. I will say that my favorite, if I could recommend any films, they would be Party Monster, even though that's Manchester, but Party Monster, that's a great film. It's a great English film. Another great English film would be one of my favorite films, Trainspotting. Another one would be, have you seen Croupier with Clive Owen? Children of Men, great English film. Great British film. We don't just have to do English films. We can do all types of films. But Croupier is a great film. That's a noir film. And how does this fit into the ice cold noir on Ice Wave? I would recommend Point Break and Apocalypse Now before any other movies. The horror. Of course, I would recommend those before anything else. This is going to sound crazy to a lot of people, but I don't care. I'm a Ray Fiennes fan. I'm a Ray Fiennes enjoyer, and a literary film with Joseph Fiennes, literary film I would recommend. Especially on a date night or something, would be Shakespeare in Love. But a great Ray Fiennes film, one that I'm one of like three people. Toledo likes this movie, but I'm one of like three people that likes this movie, is The English Patient. I think it's fantastic. Love The English Patient. Best Picture, 1996. Ray Fiennes. Anyway, how does this fit into the ice cold wave, neo-noir, cold wave noir genre that I've coined? Well, because we have cynicism, we have fatalism, a kind of existentialist attitude, muted colors, dark aesthetic, and a mystery to be solved with criminals and a crime racket where the resolution is one where the people survive, but it's not what you think it's going to be. So it fits into that category. And this is a good film. It's insular, it's interior, and that is interesting because it plays, especially in the context of the time in which it was made. When we see New York, obviously we're going to get overtones of Big Nine. And even now, if you were watching it, you would think that it's still relevant because of everything dangerous happening on the outside, right? The sort of inverted Mad Max gangs four-wheeling through the streets of New York, right, in 2020. Well, you have your billionaire panic room. It also shows you the dichotomy it shows you the clear division between those who have and those who don't, or as he mentions in The Killer, right, how the few take advantage of the many, and as much as you can, be one of the few. Whereas at the end of the film, he bookends it with the opposite: be one of the many, as he sinks back into oblivion and into gray man territory. One other thing I forgot to mention about The Killer, I'll just mention that real quick, is that I forgot the line. So he mentions Crowley, and he doesn't mention Crowley by name, but he says, "Do it, thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." Someone said he says in the film. But then remember, when instead of giving a name, he says, "I am who I am," or "I am what I am," which again plays into the fact that he is in existentialist mindset mode, but he betrays that and goes into feelings, emotions, metaphysics, and a kind of love. And he betrays his own mantra throughout the film, but then survives. So is it noir? I think Citizen Debbie asked me, is it noir? Yes, The Killer is noir. I mean, it's interesting because it's international and there's sun-soaked parts of the film, but they are still the subtext is one of darkness, solving a mystery, revenge, lots of pew-pew stuff. And so I would say that it is a noir film. if not simply because of the interior monologue, the sort of fatalistic interior, jaded interior monologue, the voiceover of the nameless assassin main character, right? Yes, yeah, that's right, Bebop. He says that's all I'm, and he quotes Popeye, right, instead of quoting Genesis. But that's because he lives in a kind of post Gen X, now fully enveloped in Great Reset era, total corporate name brand, ease of comfort world where he's doing throwbacks to cartoons that inform his sense of strength and his mission in the movie instead of the things that he has heard but he knows, if that makes sense. So that's Panic Room. So now let's go into the best of the lot, in my opinion, and that is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And this movie is great. So I don't know what people think of this movie. I mean, it is incredibly dark, but it's dark and noir in an ice cold sense because we feel like we're in an other world. We're in an other place outside of the bounds of reality, as Jim Morrison says. We're in ice cold tech Sweden, where in the Nordic countries they have superior bandwidth and internet speed and communications, even though they are totally enveloped in ice and snow, which is crazy to me, right? But makes sense also because Bluetooth, right? I mean, we know about NSA and servers in Iceland. It's used as a big server farm, like the entire country. It's hyperbole, but you get what I'm saying. And Bluetooth has a Nordic provenance. It's named after Harold Bluetooth. The symbol for Bluetooth is runes. So it sort of makes sense in that way. So what this movie is about, it's based on the Stieg Larsson sagas. It really is it's a kind of a new Nordic saga. And we just did a stream, again, the prerequisites, I just did a stream on Icelandic sagas on Egil Saga and Skål. And this really fits into that category, but one for the 21st century, or the end of the 20th century, into the 21st century when the book was published, and then finally the films, the Swedish films, and then now the David Fincher film. And the David Fincher film is interesting because I was wary going into it when I saw it in the cinema, because I had just seen the trilogy of the Swedish films, and I thought, oh, what are they going to do? I mean, they did it. But he really adds depth to this, especially, in terms of the aesthetics. And we get really, I mean, Rooney Mara is fantastic. She's very good. And she really is Lisbeth Salander. And one of the main points of the film, I think, that makes it better than the Swedish versions is that Rooney Mara, Lisbeth is supposed to be a photographic memory, eidetic memory, hacker, troubled, traumatized, emo goth. But she's also supposed to be attractive. And in the Swedish film, she wasn't really that attractive. And in this, she is. She has charisma, right? By the way, is Riz from Charisma, or, as Nick Mullen points out, is it from Lando Calrissian? Is that why? Because Lando Calrissian lives on the cloud planet, like with his digital neural linked bald neo-fascist Klaus Schwab pimp up there. He's like, hell yeah, I got all the bitches up here in Cloud City, right? Because he's Lando Calrissian. Is that why it's Riz? I don't know. I'm just an old fella. I'm trying to understand the words. I'm trying to understand the terms of the young peoples. But yeah, she's got a charisma, but she is attractive. I mean, she's totally emo gothed out, and she's got all this stuff. But she is, yes, Token, exactly. I mean, which is crazy, but it's true, right? And so, yeah. So what it's about, basically. All right, let me try and put this in a nutshell. Look, I'm in a nutshell. This is a Gen X reference. I'm in a nutshell. How did I get in this nutshell? I'm in this nutshell. Do you know what that's from? Oh my gosh. Lame. Yes, so in a nutshell, here's what the movie's about. There is a reporter played by Daniel Craig Blomquist, and he is at the beginning of the movie he is reeling from a lawsuit as a result of his reporting in Millennial magazine, which is supposed to be a kind of Charlie Hebdo, I guess. Yep, Melly got it. And they are countersuing him because he published an article, an investigative journalistic article on this billionaire in Sweden, and they're saying there's no grounding for there's no evidence for it. And this is like this. I like the movie because it doesn't try to show that the journalists are the heroes, right? It just shows that maybe there's somebody somewhere doing his job, maybe, right? But it doesn't try to paint them as, oh, we're going to publish the article and that's going to expose everything, because that does happen in the end, but only through a series of wily shenanigans and plot points that you have to go through the whole saga to get to how they make sense and how they work out. And again, a kind of a Nordic pagan fatalistic system, which is weird that they work out that way. But at the beginning of the movie, try to avoid the terms. Yes, that is what he's exposing. Just try to avoid the terms, please. Or use CODE. And so when he is at the beginning of the movie, he is reeling from that and he's in trouble because of that. Right. So it didn't work out at the beginning of the movie. So I think that's interesting, right? But there we go. Yeah, I just got to remove that. Okay. You're good. I just had to remove that one. So anyway, so he's undergoing that, and then he gets a call to go and meet. First we see him. We don't see him. We see Elizabeth Salander as a research assistant. Yeah, you just try to avoid those terms. Yeah, you're all right. And she's doing a background check on Blomquist, and Steven Berkoff is a kind of Colby-looking bow-tied guy working for somebody, and he's got the guy from ER, and they're doing a background check on this reporter, even though he's just gone through the ringer. And then we learn that it's because he's working for Christopher Plummer, who is this billionaire who owns not Vanguard, even though it sounds a lot like Vanguard Industries. Vanguard, I guess, is coal. Does it mean coal? Anybody here speak Swedish? What is Vanguard in Swedish? Coal? They're basically a Koch brothers sort of organization that's in Dr. Flossie stuff. They're in agriculture, plastics. They're a billionaire family-owned company, right? Big, I guess, conglomerate. But he hires Blomquist to come out to his estate 4 hours north of Stockholm because he has a personal thing that he wants. Yeah, it is a bummer that he didn't do a sequel, and I kind of expected it, but all the various reasons you couldn't do that. There'd already been a trilogy, and then there was the follow-up movie. Yeah, he's in Fertilizer. Thank you, Melly. And he says that he's in Fertilizer. I'm in Fertilizer now. Christopher Plummer is great. R.I.P. passed away, but I always liked Christopher Plummer. He does a great. I'll get into that. I can't get too sidetracked. He does a great film where he plays. Is it Kaiser Wilhelm? That's a great film. He's been in a million movies. And then of course he played Prospero in the theatrical version of The Tempest. We talked about that a while back. Go back and check that out. So please like and share, by the way, before I go any further, you guys, please like and share the stream. I'm trying to get those numbers up. please think about supporting me, especially supporting me directly. I'm here for you. I'm here for you and for me. This is fun. Think about. I know everybody here is a big supporter of everybody. You know, our people are definitely. Chase, you can't. No, damn it, you beat me to it. I was gonna say you can't fix her, but you beat me to it. You can't fix Elizabeth. You can't fix her. You. But everybody here is big supporters of all of people in our community. Everybody here is so generous. Please think about supporting me directly. Damn, I could use it. All right, so look. So anyway, Christopher Plummer hires Blomquist to do an investigation into what happened to his sister. Is it his sister, you guys? Because she disappeared. He tells us that there was a car accident. A car overturned on a bridge way back, 30 years ago. He says he saw her one day, then he saw her again, and then he hadn't seen her for 40 years. And he never knows what happened to her. And they show a shot of the family eating their, dinner at their estate. They live on an island. The whole place is owned, by the family, and they have various buildings on the estate, which is not unusual because it's a throwback to, the landed gentry elites who just took care of the estates and their wider business interests, but all live together in the place. But they don't speak much because, well, we're going to learn why. But there was a car accident, and then she didn't pop up to dinner, and then she disappeared. So we don't know why. So he hires Daniel Craig to come and live on the property and to investigate this. And he says, "Why me?" Well, why wouldn't you take this job if you were Daniel Craig? He doesn't have any scruples anyway, or whatever. So what he does is he says, "I'll pay you double your fee monthly, and if you figure out what happened to her, I'll quadruple your fee, and I will give you something that nobody else can give you, and that's the one thing in the world that you don't have and that you wish you had." And this was a great scene because they're sitting down eating, and he pushes a sheep's head on a plate towards him, basically a head on a platter, and he says, "I will give you this other rival billionaire, the guy that just sued Daniel Craig." And he says, Daniel Craig's like, "Well, I did all the investigation. I can't find any proof that he, that he did any of these unscrupulous shenanigans." And of course, Christopher Plummer, being the arch elite billionaire in Sweden, says, "I've been following his career very closely since the beginning, and I have all of the." He's got all the information into the guy, and he'll give it to him. So we trust him. Eventually, he kind of bows out of the movie because he has a heart attack, and then he sort of disappears. But he comes back at the end, and there's a resolution. But what's really crazy about the movie is that it makes Sweden look like the scariest place in the world where all these people are capable of these terrible things. And yet it's tantalizing how beautiful the place is. I mean, it's snowbound, it's icy. This is a great wintertime movie. It's a great summertime movie too because it's cold and you watch it thinking, "Oh, I wish it were cold." And it's lots of black leather, juxtaposed against the icy white of the outside, and then the Swedish, the sort of post-medieval architecture and the grand estates mixed in with the tech, and it just looks cool. I've never been to Sweden. I would like to go to Stockholm. It looks cold, but it's like they can handle it. Lots of chunky sweaters with shawl collars, and then, of course, Elizabeth Salander rides a motorcycle. Rides a motorcycle on the icy roads in her black leather jacket. So what's the deal with her? So we see that her guardian, she's had a guardian since she was 12, has had a stroke, and now she's been passed on to a new guardian. This is another story in the saga. And she has a guardian even though she's 24 because they declared her mentally unfit when she was 12 because she tried to kill her dad because he was doing awful things to her and to her mother, so she set him on fire. And that's what the other two books and movies are about. And so she's had this guardian the whole time who took care of her, and he was a kind man. He was a kind man. He was a kind man. But now she's been passed over to this horrible, man. That's Gabardine. That's Gabardine. This guy immediately has creeper vibes. He's the new guardian, and he's basically says, "I'm would you like to be institutionalized again?" And he has the power to do this through the state. And he's got in their little brief little sort of debate style meeting where she's great because you see her shrink. Like she's meeting with him and she kind of shrinks into her chair because she senses what this guy's capable of, and then he ends up being that. And he says he will report her, he'll have her money taken away, he'll give her a monthly allowance. He even wants to take her computer away. And that's a problem because she is a hacker, she's great at computers. And she's got this whole network of underground hacker people that are her kind of crew, one of whom is like the Kim.com of Sweden. Well, you walk into his apartment and he says, "I live on the dole. I don't need dole money." She's about to take it away. And he says, "Fine." And he takes it. And he's got a Nine Inch Nails t-shirt on. Of course, there's a Nine Inch Nails t-shirt because the score is done by Atticus Ross and Trent Reznor. And it's great. Again, just like The Killer, there's lots of there's one part where there's a pig noise right after she meets him and she walks out. There's the sound of a pig squealing, and it's very quick, but that's obviously foreshadowing because of what she's going to end up doing. So he makes her eventually do something in his office, which is horrible. And then later, she has to go to his place, and he does to her what it mirrors in the story what we know somebody is doing to women all over Sweden, complete with various things where she can't move. Right. Yeah, that was me. And she walks in, he handcuffs her. It's terrible. And he does the things to her. It's incredibly brutal. And so, yes, the movie is I can't breathe. Hold on a second. Okay, I'm fine. Let me just smoke another cig. The movie is incredibly brutal, and even though it has the WOKE elements where we have girl boss, strong girl, makes good, and saves the kind of beta man, interesting that Daniel Craig, as the alpha Bond, gets put into the kind of fuzzy-wuzzy beta position, reporter soy, of being saved constantly by the girl. But they vindicate that in the film because we get her backstory and what she's been through. So she's essentially like a Maria Farmer in the movie, right? She's been completely battered and bruised. She looks like it too, and she's got. I like that all of her facial armor is real, that she really did that. That's stunning and brave. No, I like that you can tell that it's not cosmetic. It looks, I believe her in the role. And she still does, and you could argue with me on this, but she still obviously maintains her femininity in the film because of her effect on Daniel Craig and because she's noticeable in this. I don't, maybe it's just, I don't know. But she has to be for the character to work. Does that make sense? Even though she skittles in the film, but it's like she doesn't have anything. Yeah, because everybody that she's ever trusted to take care of her has done these terrible things to her. But what she does in this that I love, and I did love this, I love that she gets back by, what she does is she arms herself, puts on, she does her eyes, she arms herself in a kind of camo and a kind of Schwarzenegger commando, neo-gothic camo, complete with a stun gun, goes back to the place like she's gonna do the thing, gonna have to do the thing again, and then bzz, and then he finds himself with crisscross. The tables are turned again, right? The tables are turned. The situation is switched. Now, the panic room, he's panicking in the panic room. And she does something terrible to him that he deserved with a thing that I don't want to say on here because it's nasty. It's real nasty. But she does that thing, and then she expresses her terms. And what's great about the scene is that she is now she physically is on top of him, and then she tattoos him right with "I am a R thing pig." So that's why we had the pig noises before, and he looks like a pig, doesn't he? We got a real blue ribbon here, folks. Sweet, big. He's got it tattooed on his chest. She says she'll come back and she'll put it on his forehead. Right? She'll tattoo the mark of him, a beast, on his forehead, and she's going to monitor his internet traffic to make sure that he's not going to. She does this later to make sure he's not going to tattoo removal places. She's going to check the bank account. She's going to check everything digital because she has access to it. And the great part about this scene is that she gets right into his eyes and she says, all of those things that you said that I was, all of that time, the reason I'm a ward of the state is because you said I'm insane. And he shakes his head and she says, no, not because I am insane. I am insane. I will do to you exactly. You know my history. I will do. And if I come back here and I find someone here, I will, and then she says what she will do. And you believe her. And she does follow up. She's relentless in checking up and making sure that her terms are honored. So I thought that was cool. I thought that was interesting. And I thought it was truthful, especially to the film, right? And at least this son bitch bad guy gets his comeuppance, right? In the book, in the film, and so then she is hired. Daniel Craig needs a research assistant, so he goes to her apartment, and we see that he's non-threatening. He comes in with donuts. He buys Marlboros, by the way, at the same place where you can buy a croissant, which is pretty cool. And so I was just thinking of this when I was in Copenhagen at the airport in Copenhagen one time, and there was this coffee shop, and they had these little umbrella-looking suction tubes above these little tables where Hans and Ragnar or whatever were sitting at the tables, and they were they were drinking their espresso and they were smoking cigarettes, and the smoke just sucked the smoke up so you could smoke in the airport. Now, that was in the early 2000s, but so it makes sense. He goes to buy the croissants and the breakfast and the cigs. He smokes one cig, then throws the pack away. Why do that? Bro, your lifestyle is already bad. The end that happens to him is way worse than the one that the smoking is going to give him. So why not just keep smoking this cig, right? Keep the pack. Don't throw it away. Shit, I'll be standing outside. I need that. I'll be going in there getting a croissant. Give me that pack of cigs, right? So don't just chuck it away. But, it's for the character, right? He's mindful of his future. It shows that he has a sense of a future and self-preservation, I assume. Even though when he goes back into the Millennium offices, Robin Wright's in there. Oh, you were smoking? Right. She can tell he was smoking from taking one drag in the 0-degree Swedish cold storm. I don't think so. And even if so, yeah, of course I was. I'm a grown A man. You got a problem? So he leaves his job there, by the way, and goes completely off the reservation onto the elite reservation where he's working. And then he gets Elizabeth Salander as his research assistant in that scene where he goes in. She by the way, goes to the Matrix techno. She goes to Berghain. She goes to Berghain and listens to the Hacker and Gesaffelstein. Right? Belgium. And then ends up with this beautiful emo goth girl, right? I can fix her. And then he comes into the apartment and he's non-threatening. And then basically they, he takes her on, and there he hires her essentially as his research assistant, and then eventually she moves in at the estate with him into his little shed. I like his little shed that he's got there, his little cottage, because it's cold as heck outside, but it looks warm on the inside. But there is a cat. There is a bad scene with a cat, and what's interesting is that we learn through the process that from Christopher Plummer that many of the family members going back to it goes back to the 1800s, but then sometime in the 1920s and 30s, of course, they were involved with a certain movement that happened in Europe, and that perfectly fits their personality. And then eventually there's a horrible scene where the cat is left at his doorstep in a what can we call this? A symbol of that movement. You notice that it's arranged so somebody has been stalking him, just like the cat stalks. Now we have cat and mouse. Daniel Craig is the mouse. The cat becomes the mouse, and we have a cat on the outside, and in the form of a man who places the cat in a quat sticker form outside. She is completely unaffected by the way, at this, and because Elizabeth is there, and they eventually she gets with him, and they get together. There's this age gap between them, but they form a kind of synthesis in their characteristics. There's one great scene where he says, "Hold on, let me get." He says, we need to have a talk about looking at my about boundaries and looking at stuff. Right. You stick to your stuff, I'll stick to mine. And then she's looking on the computer, looking through his notes the first morning. And he says, "How are you looking at those? They're encrypted." And she says, "Please." I like that scene. Um, there's also a great scene. There's also a great scene. Excuse me, folks. There's also a great scene where it's right after that where she he says, "Hold on, let me get to my home screen, and let me close this window." And she's like biting her tongue because he's a Gen X guy, I guess, on a computer, and she's a millennial hacker, and she could do all this in one F stroke or whatever it is. I don't know, but she's already memorized all of his information because of her eidetic memory. She's already memorized everything. She's got all the keywords, and she's looking at everything. "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay here, folks. Sorry, I had a little cough. I had a little tingle in the throat or something. A little tingle." It's probably this coffee. I never drink coffee. I'm sensitive to coffee. I'm not, but you know how it is. So yeah, thank you for dropping that membership link there, Jethro. Appreciate y'all for being here with me on what day is this? A Saturday afternoon. Don't forget, please think about supporting me. PayPal, Cash App, Venmo. Drop me a couple bucks while I do this analysis for you guys. I would appreciate it. About to run out of my cigs here. I need some help. She's helping him, and we learned that the family was involved in in that movement, right? In the I just mainly stick to Red Bulls. In the early part of the 20th century, and then we have a picture. We go through the investigative journalist motions where Blomquist is looking all around town. He's going to various people, and we find out that one of the last times that she was seen, the girl was that went missing. That's what the whole movie's about. Is the girl who went missing? Her name's Harriet. She was the sister, I suppose, in the family. Was at a parade. There was a parade, and there's a picture of the parade. There's a picture of her on the side, and this is so. If this were now, by the way, I was watching this and I was thinking, if this were now, they would just throw it into an AI machine and they could find out what she was looking at on the other side of the street, and it would take probably 2 seconds. But we have to go through the analog motions in this by like requisitioning the photographs and interviewing all these people and all this stuff, right? Yeah, yeah, I did. Yeah, you caught that being in motion. Yeah. So I lit the wrong end. That's one of the most annoying things for smokers. I hate it when I do that. So a lot of times I'll flip my cigarette like this, and then if I don't pay attention, not a lot of times, but occasionally, that's like once every, maybe twice a year, and then I'll go to light it, and then I light the wrong damn end. That smokers know, but yeah, you caught that one. That one, I was like, fuck. um, so so we go through the motions trying to find the trying to find the pictures because Harriet is she's enjoying the parade, and then she looks over here, she sees something, and then she backs up, and we can see her back up, and there's a girl behind her taking a photo. So Daniel Craig says, "Who is that?" So he goes and he finds that girl who's now a woman, and he says, "You wouldn't by any chance have." I like how Daniel Craig stuck to just his normal accent in this. It's much better than trying to put on a faux Swedish accent. It's like we already get it. We suspend our disbelief, and there we are. So she says, "I was on my honeymoon." She's Swedish, right? I was on my honeymoon. So of course she has pictures, and we see behind Woody Woodpecker or some shit. There's somebody standing there, and this is really well done. Although the scary parts in the film are, of course, the stark violence that occurs, especially at the climax of the film. This to me was the scariest part because I think that the small shock of people's faces when they recognize something terrifying in films is one of the most effective things. We don't even know what she's looking at, but the look on her face shows that she's terrified. And as far as we know, she's dead. So whatever she saw scared her. Now, spoiler alert, we're going to find out that what she this was her brother. She saw her brother. So skip to the end of the movie here. We learn through this 2-hour and 40-minute process that the brother is Stellan Skarsgård. Okay, Stellan Skarsgård has grown up. He lives on the property. He is involved in the business deal that buys Millennial. Millennial is the name of the Charlie Hebdo publication company, and they do that because they say they want to be able to protect free speech and journalists from vindictive billionaires, which is ironic. And anybody seeing that now would go, this is total bullshit. There's something else in here. And it seems incriminating, of kind of reflexive incrimination. But what we learn in the movie is that basically Christopher Plummer seems pretty in the clear, but he's also a billionaire in charge of this company. So even the way he hires him they're able to access resources and do shady things, but it's for a good end, at least in terms of the movie. But everybody else is shady. And Christopher Plummer actually makes a good a note of this. He says, yeah, you can invest. He's giving Daniel Craig a tour around the property, and he says, you'll never meet him. You'll never meet her. He's very unpleasant man. And that they're all cousins, right? Because the family, he says something about how the family is, all of the problems and the trouble results from the family. It's not outside of the estate. They have vast wealth and all this vast property and vast businesses everywhere, but it's the family that is causing the problems. And then he says, I would start with that guy. And then he says, of course, the person who hires you is never without suspicion. So I would suspect you would go into me. But the way he says it, we believe him. So I never believed that Christopher Plummer in the movie was going to end up being the arch bad guy. It's going to be, Being in Motion says, my ear isn't tuned to American accents. I can barely hear the difference between Canadian, but I hear when Yanks do Irish or English. Well, I'll tell you the difference. Between the American accent and Canadian. Okay. Anybody want a tangent here? And this is because I had this thing when I was living abroad of always being asked if I were Canadian. Of course, you start to take on the lilt of the accent where you were if you lived there for 5 years, a little bit, but you still retain your accent unless you're, Madge, unless you're Madonna putting on an accent, right? But there's also a mid-Atlantic sort of an upper northeast mid-Atlantic sort of standard American accent, which can be a bit Anglo-American. But the difference is that the Canadian accent is much more questioning. Like somebody was just mentioning that the Australian accent ends in an up note, right? Um, it's the same. The English and Irish accents can also do that, especially with young people. Like everything's a question. But Canadians do that, especially. Americans tend not to do that. Younger people now are kind of doing that. But in general, the American accent ends on a down note because Americans always speak with a kind of authority. That's not to say that we are the authority. It's just to say that Americans assume, in terms of our worldview, that, and in terms of the way that we do things. I mean, look at a New York accent. It's that you speak your thing and it's done, right? Whereas the Canadian accent can be much more of a lilting and an upwards. Also, the shape of the O sounds is different, and the terminology is always different. Well, I matriculated from grade. I was in grade 9. Right? You're not American if you say that. I was in grade 9. But it's the little things, right? Southern accents, especially in America and in Ireland, also are affected by geography and climate, and they tend to be elongated. Like they're in less of a hurry to do things. Whereas, like for instance, the northeastern accent here, or like a New York accent, is affected by snow and cold and the New York minute and getting everything done. We got to get everything done now. I'm walking here. We got to get everything done now. Right? Or in Northern Ireland, it's much more hard and tactile. It's almost more Viking-esque. Right? Right, what are you doing there? Right? It's got a sort of an edge to it, if that makes sense. Where's your potato crisps? One time I was standing there with my friend outside of the cinema in Belfast, and we were about to go see. I think we were going to go see Get Rich or Die Trying when that came out. Remember that 50 Cent movie, 50 Cent movie, which is directed by an Irishman. We were standing there outside smoking cigarettes. These two steaky bastards walked up to us and they said, "Right, use partners." And we said, "The fuck?" They said, "Use partners." And I said, "The fuck? What's he talking about?" And he was like, this fella's asking us if we's partners. And he said, "Fuck off." He said, "Right, fuck you." And that was it. That was the whole conversation. No, we're just a couple of fellas about to smoking a cigarette and about to go watch a 50 Cent movie. Duh. Fuck off. Use partners. Fuck off, you wee spady bastard. Did I tell you about when I looked outside of my house? I lived in this house with 4 friends, and my friend Edward had parked his car outside in the street, and we heard a noise, and we looked out the window, and there was literally, there was a guy, there was a bald bastard, probably a, I don't know, he's probably a UDA guy, so we didn't want to go outside and mess with him. But there was a bald bastard, a hard man outside, and this guy put his fingers, the car was locked, this guy put his fingers in the edges of the door and bent the door in half. The door is like this, and that's how he broke into the car. He didn't smash the window. He didn't try to shimmy his way in. He didn't break the window. He bent the door frame in half of the car, and then he unlocked it from the inside and got in and drove off in the car. I said, "Edward, what are you going to do?" He said, "Well, I'm not going to go after him. That's for sure. Fuck's sake." A little tangent there. There's a couple of millies on the street corner there. There's a couple of millies on the street corner. Aye, so there was. I saw a lot of shit. So anyway, so what was I saying? So what we find out at the end of the film is that Daniel Craig has been running around the woods and he's been prey for somebody there. He doesn't ask who's shooting at me on this property, but he goes into Stellan Skarsgård's house and he sees, there is a there's a shotgun right there. No, does he find a shotgun? I think he sees a rifle. There's a rifle sitting right there in the corner. Uh-oh. And Stellan Skarsgård says, should we go hunting? Should we go hunting sometime? Should we go hunting? And he pulls a Glock. I guess he pulls a Glock out of a kitchen, a kitchen drawer, and he says, "Leave the knife with you." And he takes him through the terror tunnels into the Charles Ng Leonard Lake cell underneath the house. This is never a good place to go. If you're in the house and the guy says, "Come with me," don't go. Just no matter what, don't go, right? If he says, "Put the knife down," well, I can't say what you would do, but it wouldn't be go into the terror tunnels, because he walks in, and of course, watching any of these things, that there's going to be either a surprise from behind, there's going to be a knock on the head or something he drank, or there's going to be a quick tss, and that's what there is. And we turn around and we see him. He's got a gas mask on, and then Daniel Craig's hoisted up in this Trotcher machine with his neck all braced up. And he even says, "I've never had the man down here before." Oh, boy. Oh, just please, listen. This doesn't have to, there doesn't have to be a first time. I can just leave, right? I can just leave, right? But Deus Ex Machina, who comes to save him, is Rooney Mara. And Lisbeth, by the way, is actually the prey here. And Stellan says, when they were having dinner that night up there a few nights ago or whatever, there was a girl in a cage, an Ariel, whatever that guy's name is. You thought that was bad. My uncle, what does Norm say? My uncle Raymond, he had a fucking electric train in the basement, right? He's got that down there. He's got her down there. And we learned that Stellan Skarsgård has been the killer of women that in Sweden. And this has been going on a long time, right? And that's how, by the way, there's a moment in the film, there's probably the best moment in the film, or the selling point, but it is actually a good moment, is when he's in her apartment and he says, "I want you to help me catch a killer of women." And she looks up, and I like that when she looks up, her eyes, she's instantly locked in. She's going to be the one to help. I thought that was good. Crispy, I've been to the Schenkel many times. Schenkel and Sandy Row. Not the Falls, though. Won't catch me on the Falls. Maybe the Orma Road, because that's where we hung out when we were students. That's where you get the takeout, right, after the clubs. But yes, so there are, yes, Melly brings up, there are ritualistic and biblical elements in the film. One of those is is it Leviticus? Is that this film? Yeah, it's Leviticus. So he finds a Bible. And he sees that the missing girl, Harriet, has written a Bible quote in there, and a biblical quote, and it's from Leviticus, talking about, it's the verse about, if you catch a sorceress, right, then her head shall be separated from her body. I'm paraphrasing here, forgive me. But he calls, at that point in the movie, he calls the detective, who, by the way, is the same detective who is the handler for Viggo Mortensen in Eastern Promises, great movie. And we learned that there was a woman decapitated. So we see this, again, this Mark Dutroux, Satanist, elitist, but it's in Sweden, who is allowed to be a serial killer and is protected by his old fascist power structure, now moved into the globalist power structure family, and by the system. And that the major systems outside of the people here, the conglomerates and the corporations, are all at war with one another constantly, and they use each other for these purposes. And what I suspect, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know any research, and I know there is research into this. But the thing that I'm afraid of with this is that the book is autobiographical in a sense that it's about an investigative journalist, and that this is a pretty thickly veiled novel about something somewhere. I don't even know if it's I don't know. But this is just me reading it and not even doing any research into this, but just that would be the thing that I would suspect. And that Bloomquist is the Stieg Larsson character, and that he died at 50? And it was I remember when he died. He died at 50 and it was very sudden. What happened to him? I don't know. I don't want to speculate. I think that the novel speculates enough for us. But I would suspect that this is because the movie and the books are truthful. They're not necessarily factual, right? But we're reading a book of prose, a novel, a novelistic saga that something something happened to him maybe as a result of this or whatever. Right. And that's not to say that I don't know about his life. I know the things that Debbie just pointed out, that he was involved in those things. I know that he was involved in like the socialistic, activities, and maybe that was the cause. Maybe that was the end of it, right? The paramilitary activities, and so it's not to say that he's on some, righteous mission here, but there is a sense of righteousness if he's involved with exposing the thing that the movie is about. That is certainly this is bad, and this is bad, okay? But yes, it's like we get many elements in this. There are so many elements. There's the neo-pagan element. There's the Nordic sort of holdover into the kind of a blood feud element. There's SRA. There is generational trauma of the worst kind. Shouts out to, hey, we're talking about exposing, and there we go. We got Jerry in here, right? There is neo-goth I Can Fixer elements. There's Atticus Ross, Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails, Black Goo, opening sequence, Gesaffelstein, techno elements. There is the hacker genius in the 21st century. There's analog versus digital. There's the heat. There's the hellish heat of the events in the movie juxtaposed against the ice cold exterior scenes. And so what ends up happening is Elizabeth goes down, saves him. She golf clubs him in the face. I should have yelled too, right? She golf clubs him, and he gets in his Range Rover and takes off. She chases him through the tunnels, by the way, but this is a nature tunnel because it's outside and the light going through the trees and the pathway off the island, right? He's trying to escape the island at this point, which is what his sister did and what everybody else has done. He's brought them to the island. He, by the way, his whole mission was to bring Elizabeth as his next victim there. And then he ends up being pursued by her. So predator and prey switch. He gets, she goes around him on the chase. He crashes right off of the bridge where his sister was believed to have died. And then he's burned and he's dies in conflagration, just like Elizabeth did to her father. So again, we have the old switcheroo, crisscross, right? We've got a kind of a fatalistic retribution here. But there is some sense in the film, at least, of the fact that Harriet is the Christian and she escapes her torment because we learn that the reason she was tormented was that her father, who was this billionaire, was abusing her and her brother. And one night he was trying to kill her. She got out of the house, she escaped the house, and she knocked him in the head with an oar, and then he drowned, and then only to supplant one predator with another. So now her brother takes over that role. And so that's why she escaped. And she faked her death or her escape with her friend's help. Her friend is played by Joely Richardson, who ends up being the contact that they are able to find out that no, Harriet is still alive and she's living in Australia. So she's gone from the cold to the Australian. She's exchanged snow for sand dunes, I suppose, right? Or outback. I don't know where she's living in Australia. I'm just saying in terms of the general exterior, right? So she's alive, and we get that. Is Jolie Richardson the one who helps her? Maybe she isn't. I don't know. There's so many damn characters. There's a lot of damn characters, but the thing also holds, right? And so she was able to defend her. Also, the knocking in the head and the golf club in the head. So she struck her dad in the head with the oar, and then Elizabeth strikes him in the head with the golf club, and then he was lopping off heads, Caligula style, with the lopping machine. Spoiler alert, it's all a dream of Jimmy Carter. Or as we would say, as every ignorant New Jersey woman would say, irregardless. Maybe I got that clip. Hold on. Irregardless. Yo. Irregardless. I'm just, and I do retarded things. That was Jimmy Carter. Damn it, I didn't load that one in here. It's the best clip, dude. Here's Sam talking about, here's how he says Los Angeles.
For being, I don't know what time it is there in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. Irregardless. Oh, hold on. Let me find this clip. Irregardless. Damn. I can't find anything when I want it. I can never find anything when I want it.
Listen,
Here you go.
at the end of the day, like an ignorant New Jersey Italian would say, irregardless.
Shouts out to Mersh. Shouts out to his family. So anyway, that is the girl with the dragon tattoo. And the opening sequence, the Atticus Ross, Trent Reznor immigrant song, Led Zeppelin cover by Karen O of the Yeah Yeah Yeahs opening sequence, where we have bodies covered in this weird black goo, is, you know, is supposed to be, number one, a music video. It's like a David Fincher music video. Did you know David Fincher directed Vogue by Madonna? He did Freedom, just what you say, by George Michael. He did that Sting song. To play us out, here's Sting with An Englishman in New York. But it's also, the movie won Best Editing, an Oscar for Best Editing. And in the end of the movie, again, in David Fincher style, we have Elizabeth. She goes off on this expedition to arrange, by the way, for there to be a series of transactions so she can cash in on her investment from the guy who sues Daniel Craig at the beginning. And he ends up writing a Charlie Hebdo article in Millennial about the same guy, even though he's been sued. And this time, he can't be countersued because Vanger owns the company. And also, we learned that guy who sued him was that rival billionaire has been smoked by one of his multinational globalist interests, who was not happy with the exposure that they got from the article. So he gets got, and then we also have her writing a Christmas Christmas note to Daniel Craig, like as if she's going to have conventional life now with him. They seem to be in good spirit, but then she shows up one night and she sees that he is now back with Robin Wright, and so she throws the letter in the trash and drives off, and that's the end of the movie. And it's interesting because she doesn't drive off into the sunset; she drives off into the snowy moonscape. And we also get a cliffhanger into the next two episodes of the saga, right? Because it's going to continue with her. But it is very sad. It's a sad ending, but it's appropriate for the film because nothing. I mean, yes, it's resolved. We got rid of the serial killer, and we now have exposed the billionaires or whatever with the media, but it's not really resolved, right? Because I like how they did that. It's not like at the end of Network, or we're gonna publish it in the New York Times and it's all gonna be great. They do that, but they also show that it's not really resolved because for one, her life isn't resolved, and like you said, the guy, by the way, the guy who was her new guardian is still around. She's got to make sure she keeps tabs on him. We don't know that nothing's going to happen to Bloomquist, so she goes off, token into the midnight sun, into retreats into the darkness of her own life again. So it's sad but appropriate in this film. Also, it doesn't resolve. We know now what happened to all the women that disappeared, but they're gone. They can't come back, and there's not really a retribution, there's a kind of a reckoning. What happens to Stellan Skarsgård? But the family still has their thing, and Daniel Craig even points out when he publishes the article. Elizabeth says, "What will happen to him?" And he says, "Oh, he might get put away." And she says, "Do you think that will happen to him?" And he says, "Probably not. These people never do," which is true. He does end up getting Jeff Stein McEffried, but that's it. So that is the girl with the dragon tattoo. Again, it's a ice cold ice wave, Coldwave Noir. And so let's end it with talk of the game, because I was just going to do those two films, but then I watched this one right before stream, so I thought I would throw this in as a bonus. You guys, please make sure you like and share the stream before we get to the game. Make sure everybody smash that like, share my streams. We need to get those numbers up. If you like some Coldwave, by the way, listen to Cold Cave. You listen to old Cold Cave. The singer is gone. He R.I.P. the original singer, but and that guy has one arm. I think the new singer. Does he have one hand? I don't know what happened to him, but that was a cool band that was around the early, like 2010s. I like some Coldwave. And that, by the way, that brings to mind one thing I also forgot about The Killer, which is, did you notice how Fassbender, when he's holding his pistola in the film, he holds it in Putin style. He doesn't hold it in Seagal style. He's not double handing it. Instead, he comes in with this awkward one arm dragging and the other pointing. You never see that in movies now. I thought that was unusual body language. I guess, is it to keep his other hand free in case he's got to use it for the, for problems of opportunity? Or is it because it's Putin style and he's got one hand here and the other hand's, down here? I don't know. But when you watch the movie, it's remarkable. If you know about such things, then tell me why. Please, I could really use the support. You guys, please, somebody give me some support here. Somebody drop a fat chat. A PayPal, Cash App, Venmo could use it. Just ate my dollar menu. Also, I had the DVDs to these movies, so I wouldn't have to pay for them, but they're gone. So I had to pay for them. But I don't mind that. I like Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. The Game is on. That was free. So here's The Game. I watched this movie in the cinema when it came out. Saw it with my dad, and this is, hi, I'm Michael Douglas. Hi, I'm Michael Douglas. Hi, my name's Michael Douglas, and I'm in this movie, The Game. We're going to play a little game with Sean Penn, directed by David Fincher. It's like 1997. This one is certainly noir because it exists in the same kind of muted, colored palette, aesthetic, dark, informed by family trauma mood board that David Fincher lives in this universe of his that he's created where, shouts out to Citizen Debbie, who became a high IQ book enjoyer. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Yes, exactly. First person Q. Yes. Remember his podcast? He had that podcast. I don't know if it's still around. But hi, I'm so this is same universe as kind of Fight Club, Seven, Panic Room, Sort of Gone Girl. I don't know about Mank. I didn't see that. I didn't see Mank. I'm not really interested in that. I that came out around 2020 or 2021 when I found it irrelevant, and I didn't want to see it. Because I love Gary Oldman, but I don't like what they've done with Gary Oldman. And I didn't want to see another The Artist. I didn't even see The Artist. But yeah. So, have you guys seen The Jewel of the Nile or Romancing the Stone? The Jewel of the Nile. I was talking to Jamie about this. The Jewel of the Nile is interesting because it deals with the Rumi type. What do you call them? Sufi mystics. The guy in it is a Sufi mystic prophet, the one who comes to save them. And it's, of course, Middle East. They're selling, it's in that place. And they're selling like Harrier jets in the Middle East. And it's also got the Billy Ocean song. And Michael Douglas and Danny DeVito and Kathleen Turner are in the music video of Billy Ocean, which is pretty cool. How can you not love that Billy Ocean song? When the going gets tough, the tough get going. In the love zone. You don't have to worry in the love zone. Remember that song? All right, so, and Kathleen Turner has my voice. She's like, listen, I'm a romance writer and we're going to write some books. It's even more than me. It's me like overloaded on AJ. All right, so the game. So the game is a 1997 film about, hi, I'm Michael Douglas, playing a billionaire financier with Super 8 films superimposed over the beginning of the movie to give us some exposition about his character and what's happened in his life. We see him in a 57 Chevy or whatever at a birthday party going back to the estate. Again, the estate, the elite estate, with his dad. His dad's got his pants hoiked all the way up. And his dad is at the party, and then we see that his dad walks off. He writes a letter, and then he defenestrates himself or whatever. And so we are going to put together that Michael Douglas has been forced to grow up quickly and be the dad for his brother, Sean Penn. And he's carrying on the financial burdens and the financial industry of this elite family. Well, he lives all alone. He's in this massive Bruce Wayne estate. He lives all alone except for Ilsa. There's a Swedish maid, Ilsa, who makes him really good-looking food. She puts that cheeseburger in the oven right on the silver plate, right? And she puts that birthday cake cupcake right in that under the crystal. That's Ilsa. So he goes off. It's his birthday. We learn he goes off to the Athenaeum Club or whatever in New York. And then his brother comes in, who's Sean Penn, and he makes his reservation under Seymour Butts. Very lame. Very, very Simpsons. And then throwback to the 50s and 60s, boomer youngster comic book joke, right? And there's also one thing it annoys me when he goes back to the house at one scene when there's like his house has been vandalized in this like graffiti and they're playing Jefferson Airplane, and I'm like, you need to have something newer than that. We get the reference is so heavy that reality is not what you think, right? Follow out, Alice down follow the white rabbit down this rabbit hole of whatever he's in this most dangerous game. It's too much. They should have had something newer. But what he does is he goes and has a birthday lunch with his brother, he's the black sheep of the family. He's a badass. He says, oh, I remember this restaurant. Oh, you've been here before? No, he says he bought crystal meth off the Mater D. So he's off doing whatever, right? He's the bad guy. He smokes cigarettes in the place. That's illegal they're in California. He smokes cigarettes in California. I don't give a fuck California, he says. Well, that's kind of cool. That is pretty cool. But he gets an invitation to a thing called CRS. Can't remember shit. And it's a game. And so he goes and signs up for the game. And watching it, that when he signs up for the game and he goes through this weird vetting process, MK Ultra facility process, that part of the game begins with how much he's willing to take of the vetting process in the game. Because he's sitting there watching damn flickering words on a screen, conformity, right? And he's like, is this going to end soon? But he stays. So that's going to show his personality that he's willing to stay for that part of the game. So basically, Michael Douglas signs up for this game and they tell him that he's rejected, but then he finds out that he's in the game and basically he has to survive the game. And it's a most dangerous game with he is the target, but he's also signed up for it. So he wants to be in it. So it's a flip on the most dangerous game because instead of hunting other human beings, he signed up for himself to be hunted. And that essentially is going to give him a thrill in life. We know that. And the point of the game is to figure out what is the game. And eventually he figures it out because he goes through this whole long process. And then he thinks at the end of the film, spoiler, he thinks at the end of the film that he walks into a cafeteria full of crisis actors and then he shoots his brother. They say, we thought you knew. Like, why would he know? He goes to the rooftop. And he jumps off through breakaway glass. He shatters the glass ceiling, but reverse style, into a big, landing pillow. And he's in an Eyes Wide Shut party, and they all congratulate him. And they say happy birthday. And so now he is living a new life. And then he, at the end, he kind of gets a date with the woman who was sort of his handler. And that's the end of the movie. That's what the game is about. But what is it really about? Well, it's about, again, the crisis actors. It's about psyops, severe gaslighting, a Masonic allegory, right? Let the brother receive the light, where he has to ego death. He has to destroy himself and who he is and literally take responsibility for his brother's life because there's a scene where his brother runs away down the kind of Jacob's ladder, down the stairway to heaven, but reverse into life and disappears. And then he has to realize, oh, I've spent too much time trying to father my brother. Now my life is empty. That gives his brother a kind of reckoning. And then finally, jumping off the roof right into the abyss. There's your word. Through glass, right through the mirror, where he wakes up in a shining Eyes Wide Shut party, and now he is initiated into the elites because they're all there. All the people are there, and they've all been part of it. And he gets that lion's paw, and now that he has sacrificed himself for himself, he can be fully as part of their system, which is interesting because it also makes you think, how old is this game? How many people are involved? It seems everybody's involved because they have the whole city on lockdown. Everybody's employed. They go to fake hospitals. They go to fake businesses. They're able to tear down businesses. Everybody's employed. They're all crisis actors. And there's even a drowning scene, right? He's in the back of a taxi cab, and one of the guys from Braveheart, the guy with the cool dude with the marks on his face, but he's been given a key, which is the window rolled down, so he opens now he's inside the car. He opens the psychic window and he's baptized into this life. But he never finds, this is the elite system. And you wonder whether his dad was part of this and that was part of the game, whether this is SRA, whether he was generationally involved in this and it all led up to this moment. Because as unlikely as the movie is in terms of the practicality and the practical elements, like jumping in that exact spot and all that stuff, none of that matters. It's all heavily loaded in symbolism and allegory because it's the purpose of it. Like he goes through he goes through all this stuff only to get the key, which is the window roller downer. Right? He goes through it only to land on X marks the spot, only to fall through the Tiffany ceiling into the lobby of the Jefferson Hotel. It looks like the Jefferson Hotel in Richmond, where they're all sitting, and there's all the different levels of society. I'm just now getting okay, dude. And now he is initiated. So, in a way, it's crazy because there's a lot of Kubrickian elements in this. There are many. There's The Shining and there's Eyes Wide Shut. And in a way, it's like this is Eyes Wide Shut for somebody who's already in the thing. It's not for Bill Hartford. It's for a guy who's already in the thing, but has to go up another circle. The circles within circles. So one of the things that annoys me is this is pre Trent Reznor era Fincher. So we get this like piano tinkling the whole time, and it's interesting because this is 2 years before Eyes Wide Shut. But instead of the minimalist, I guarantee you Kubrick saw this movie, and he was thinking instead of the constant piano, piano tinkling, sort of faux surface level tension of the piano, which is just it's just redundant upon redundancy. That's what he says in The Killer, right? Redundancy, redundancy, redundancy. Instead of that, Kubrick was like, no, just give me 2 notes. We're going to do 2 notes, and then we're going to do Jocelyn Pook, and we're going to do church chanting, backmasked, Aleister Crowley style in the Eyes Wide Shut scenes, right? We're gonna get liturgy backwards, so we're backmasking into this Satan system. Chase says, so he didn't fix her? Good question. It's left ambiguous. At the end of the movie, she says, "You don't even know my real name." They should have left it like that. Why know her name? Why would she have a name? She's part of the functionary handler. She's part of the MK group that does this to him willfully. Why would she have a name? And maybe the name she gives him is not her real name. Everything else has been fake. So that's one of the things about the film is that everything is fake. It's fake upon fake upon fake, but it all ends up being part of the big game. And the game, obviously, is also their sort of version of the grand chessboard game that they're going to play with the rest of the world, but in themselves. It's a kind of training. Right? So, yeah. So, was it Forrest Whitaker also in the Crying Game? Yes, he was. He was. Forrest Whitaker was the one kidnapped by the IRA in the Crying Game. Stephen Ray is in that film. He plays the main guy in that. Stephen Ray's great. He's another Northern Irish actor. He is a patron of the Lyric Theatre in Belfast, and I think he went to Queen's, where I went. There's an event coming up that I get invitations for the alumni things that are always in New York. The last one was at the ambassador's house in New York. I should have gone to that, but I couldn't make it up. I can't even get in the damn car and go to the McD's, right? Because the gas. But I should have gone to that event. Because Liam Neeson was there. Liam Neeson went to Queens, where I went. But anyway, that's my brief analysis of the game. But I think it's great because it also shows, it shows at various times that, for instance, media can be controlled. Like he's sitting there talking. He goes into his house. When he gets rejected from the game, that's the first part of the ritual, right, of the initiation, that he gets rejected by CRS. And he goes back home and he sees a clown outside of his house. That's the second part of the initiation, right? He's confronted by the jester, and it shows that he's now in upside down world. He's in clown world. Nothing will be as it seems, and it's all kind of a joke. And he takes the clown inside. What if you go home to your estate, to your mega estate, to your mega mansion, or to your regular home, and you see a clown outside? Like a clown doll, like a porcelain clown. Don't take it inside. Don't take my buddy inside, right? My buddy, wherever I go, he likes to go. Do you remember that commercial? Don't take it inside. Well, he takes it inside, and then he's watching, Bernard Shaw or whoever on the news on a kind of a faux CNN. The markets were capped today. Why are you looking at the television show? Michael Douglas is a fat, bloated billionaire who's got nothing to offer. And anyway, but he does like a max headroom glitch. And then the part where he says, how do you know what I'm looking at? Well, because there's a camera, because they got into your house and put cameras everywhere. Duh. And he's like, warmer, warmer. And he's looking around his room. Well, you can see on the television that you are not close to the camera source. If the camera's over here, why are you walking over there? Go right up to the clown. It's obviously in the clown's eye. It's in the clown's illuminate confirm eye. Yeah. Twin Sister. Have you ever heard of Twin Sister, the singer? She had a good song. She was around with, Diplo produced her, I think, in the early 2010, like late 2000s. Santi Gold. Remember when there was Santo Gold and she had to change her name to Santi Gold? She got a good song, Run the Road. And I like her first album. Yeah. Ventura. Yes, Satan? Oh, I apologize, Mr. Shickadance. Mr. Shickadance, I'll have the rent. Mr. Shickadance. Mr. Shickadance is played by Alexander Sosa's my associate who recognized his trash earlier at the bar. You see him up in the helicopter? You see Mr. Shickadance up in the helicopter. Remember that in Scarface? Yeah. And he's in Breaking Bad, too. And he's in Pi. He's in Darren Aronofsky's Pi, which is an interesting film. Great soundtrack to that movie, by the way. Great soundtrack. Photech on the soundtrack. Come to me, my jungle friends. Your gun is digging into my hip. My sister and I love that movie. She can quote, I can too, but she especially. One of my sister's talents is she can watch a movie one single time and remember every single line of dialogue. I mean, for real. And we're good at that too. I can do that, but not to the level she can. She's very good at it. Shouts out to his family. So that's about it, you guys. I think that's my David Fincher Coldwave Noir analysis. Of course, the final film is the game is Noir because again we have a guy on a detective mission for but this time he is detecting himself. He hires various private detectives who are all obviously crisis actors, part of the system, but he is essentially looking for himself. That's what the movie's about. It's an egocentric LaVeyan search for self in a quasi-Masonic allegory of the elites in a most dangerous game, grand chessboard, parallel universe where there are circles within circles. Chandler says, I've been voraciously reading Poe since Halloween. His detective ones are quality. Yeah, well, Poe is the first detective story, right? The Murders in the Rue Morgue with the orangutan, right? And was an inspiration for Sherlock Holmes. Poe invented like 7 different genres. If you like that, we just covered Poe. We did. What Poe did we do? Well, we did Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym on our friend Bazed Polish stream back in January of that was a year ago, right? Our Bazed Polish friend. And Baginski. And we also did a Poe stream early on in the life of this channel. And then we did the Cask of Amontillado when we were covering, well, I don't know. We were doing that recently. Where's the, because I speak is like, he says to me, and the dolphin says to me, you might be more careful. If I'd been drinking from the toilet, I might have been killed. Good evening, Captain Stubing. How are Gopher and Doc? Permission to come aboard, sir. I don't smoke. It's a disgusting habit. Look, you got to like your dumb movies, your funny movies. It's a great film, right? It is what it is. We like our early Jim Carrey. We recently did Truman Show on Jim Bob's channel, and it's funny because the game is a kind of a Truman Show, right? It's just darker, and I mean, even the girl with the dragon tattoo is a kind of a Truman Show, in a way. The island aspects, the insular society, right, with the all-seeing eye system above it. Yes. Go back and watch my Truman Show analysis on Jim Bob's channel. Yeah, and check out all of mine recently. So I think that's probably about it, y'all. Shouts out to Maddie at Digital Minefield. He'll be doing a stream tomorrow, I think. I can't really do a Robert Stack impression. All I can say is that it was my favorite show when I was little. It came on after TGIF. And he would always say, there's a dangerous maniac on the loose. And then they would come in with the update and he would say, update. The dangerous maniac is on the loose and has been spotted in your area in Richmond, Virginia. And you're like, what? I told you about the cop who came to school in 5th grade and taught DARE, and he was on an episode of America's Most Wanted. He is the one who took care of the guy, and he was in the dramatization of the thing that he did on America's Most Wanted. We called him Skunkwig because he had like a lightning bolt shock of gray all the way, like a mohawk down the center of his head. Beastal, that was his name. I saw him at a Widespread Panic concert later. He was doing security. But that guy was so fucking funny. He was like, he came in and he was like, you guys might recognize me from the latest episode of America's Most Wanted. I'm the one who caught the serial killer. Well, I didn't just catch him. He's gone now because I unloaded 7 times on him. And it was true. He told us a story. He said, because he brought in the briefcase. Do you know what DARE? You guys know what DARE is? So in 5th grade, he brought the DARE's briefcase and he opened it up in Miss Epps' class. No, it was 4th grade. Yeah, it was 4th grade, Miss Epps' class. And it had everything in it behind glass. And I just remember at the time, one of my friends goes, what's that? What's ice? And he goes, that's the newest thing. That's the newest crystal meth. You want to avoid that. And we thought it was weird because Vanilla Ice was popular. But he told us the story about, he said, I've only had to pull my piece 432 times in the line of duty. It was like, only? And he said, one thing when I'm here, I see you, Stuart. I see you right there. You're looking at my piece. Don't try to put your hands on it. Last time I did this, I was at a 4th grade library. I was walking down the hall. This kid came up. I felt something. I felt something on my piece. I had to neutralize the hand. Break it. Break it. I threw him 20 feet down the hallway. We were like, what the fuck? And he said, one time about a year ago, we received a call from a guy who was on PCP, angel dust. And we went up to a factory apartment. This guy, he saw fire all around him. He said, I'm on fire. And so he started walking towards us. So I took out my piece. And then he said he was in flames, and he grabbed an axe, and he came at us. So we unloaded on him. There were 20 of us there. We all unloaded him. He fell out the window, 3rd story of the apartment, fell on the ground. He was still on fire. He was still coming at us. So we ran down the stairs. When he was still coming at us, he was coming right at us. So we unloaded on him again. It was a great night in the line of duty. We were like, holy shit. That was a great guest speaker. Very funny. So that was DARE. Yeah. Well, they call it that dust. That sherm, that dust, that Big Dipper. Right? That wet. I didn't know you like to get wet, though. I don't know. Maybe it's because it makes you, well, think of the symptoms, right? Or think of the reactions that you get from that. The Big Dipper. Ooh, you ever seen that one show where they talk about it? The woman says, "Here we're in Washington, D.C. It's called the Big Dipper Rainbow Highway. You can get Sherm anywhere on the street." And she says, "Ooh, wee. I got that ooh, wee." And then there's Angel Dust, which is the Faith No More second album. Great album. Great album. Midlife Crisis. Great album. Yeah, but because it makes you so high, man. That dust, I guess. Maybe it's named after the Faith No More album. I don't know why I'm talking about this. So anyway, yeah, Taxi Cab Confessions. You remember that? So that's about it. That's my Coldwave Noir, right? Fatalistic, existentialist, David Fincher, Coldwave Noir, existing in a cynical state of vindicated paranoia in their system, right? Where the person is essentially trying to solve a crime that ends up being either done by or about them, or they play a major role in. Yeah. So that is Cold Wave, David Fincher. And I really do think that Fincher is a kind of successor to Kubrick in a lot of ways. I'm not comparing them in the sense that, in a way it's apples and oranges, right? I got apples over here, you got oranges over there. What are you going to do? You going to put the two together? But I think that, in terms of the depth of his semiotics, as we read in the interview in the article last night about The Killer, and in an Albert Camus existentialiste, the stranger sense, stranger, in the other sense of the other, we're in an other world that seems foreign to us. There are elements that we can grab onto, and we see our own world in those. They always seem to be an other, or they are parallel or revelatory and predictive for the world we live in, and show elements of the power structure. I think that many filmmakers they do not do that. I like his show. I like his show Mindhunter. I like especially the first season of that. I wish he would do a third season so we could see his stuff on BTK. I've talked so much about BTK on Boiler Room. Shouts out to Boiler Room crew, and because of all the news that's happened there within the past couple months, especially dealing with the Gilgo Beach guy and the updates on BTK. So if you want to see those or hear about those, you can go to Boiler Room, or you can go to TNT Radio Live, and you can listen to my interviews on Hesher's channel. Hesher, Brian McClain, listen to his channel, or any of the number of spots that I've done on there. I've done a bunch. So shouts out to his family, shouts out to Boiler Room, and to TNT Radio Live, the crew over there. Make sure you grab a membership so you can support me. We're going to continue doing member streams, member-only streams. Rockfin, yeah, best place to watch Boiler Room, probably. You can also go to alternatecurrentradio.com. They had some up on the Rumble, and they're always on Rockfin. And, of course, TNT Radio Live, the app. You can look at that. You can listen to the podcasts. I keep forgetting to set up the Spreaker app so we can do podcasts first. There's a podcast category in the playlist here, but we need it for, especially for YouTube audio. Shouts out to First Person Q, who gifted 1 membership. Thank you so much, First Person Q. Really appreciate you there. Toledo, our friend Toledo was gifted a membership. Yo, listen, before the start of the stream, we had, I think, 24 memberships, which is great. We had like 24 memberships out of the first time we announced this. We've done 1 members only stream. We have 24 memberships before the stream started here. So that's great. And I'm very thankful for that. Thank you so much, y'all. Really appreciate that. And if you want to support me, which I really would appreciate and really, honestly, really could, everybody can use that. I hate to keep bringing it up, but You know, it's hard times, harsh times out there. Have you seen the movie Harsh Times with Christian Bale? That's a good, underrated Christian Bale film. You guys should watch that because he plays a guy who's just come back from the war on terror, and he's in L.A. going through various shenanigans, and he's looking for a contractor job, and it's pretty well done. It's like 2006, 2007. And yeah, it's the killer is very Sigma, has a lot of elements that can be associated with American Psycho. If you like American Psycho, go back to my American Psycho analysis on here or my various Bret Easton Ellis streams. We've done Lunar Park, American Psycho. What else? We did the Book of Vignettes, short stories. We've done not Rules of Attraction. Have we done Rules of Attraction? We didn't do Less Than Zero. Glamorama, we did Glamorama. So we've done a bunch of Bret Easton Ellis postmodernist streams. Go back and check those out if you like those, you guys. But again, yes, I really could use your support. Please support me directly. And we will be back soon. I don't know when, but soon. Looking at some more just literature. We got to get back to Shakespeare. The last Shakespeare I did was Much Ado About Nothing. So, yeah, I did Lunar Park. Lunar Park is my favorite Bret Easton Ellis book. I think it's a masterful book. It's very, very well done. Really, if I could recommend one Ellis book, it would be that one. So check out my analysis of that. That was from a while back, like a year and a half ago or something like that. But check that out. Yes, he did a film called The Canyons. It's not great. And he kind of disowned that film. Also, we need to do, there's Imperial Bedrooms. He also has The Shards, which came out early this year. I was going to do that around the time that I did Cormac McCarthy's The Passenger, but I did that instead. So Don DeLeo, Bret Easton Ellis, and Cormac McCarthy all exist in this postmodern landscape. We need to do, All the Pretty Horses. Maybe I'll do that one next. I need to do Geek Love, Decameron, All the Pretty Horses, sponsored streams, and we're going to do a Shakespeare. Maybe 12th Night or As You Like It. Also, I need to do Absalom by William Faulkner. We need to do a Paul Schrader stream, Paul Schrader film stream. The Gardener is a good one. The Gardener, of course, Taxi Driver and all those, but Light Sleeper, The Gardener, and the Card Counter, which I was really impressed by. I was really impressed by that one. We did Hunger Games as part of the Most Dangerous Game theme. So if you've got suggestions, leave them in the comments after the stream. Make sure you like and share. Please reach out and support me. If you want to sponsor a stream, you can do that. $50 a movie, $100 a book. And I will look at the suggestions and do that. And that's about it, you guys. So to play us out, let me make sure one more time that I'm giving everybody a shout out that I should. You can also support me on Dono Chat, of course. Yes, and I really want to get that Point Break stream in because it's the greatest movie of all time. My page expired. Why is that? So I can't look at Donut Chat right now, but check out. Let me make sure one more time on here that I'm giving a shout out to everybody. It's probably a glitch on Dono. Yeah, shouts out to Melly, who gifted those 5 memberships, Being in Motion for 10 quid. Citizen Debbie, who became a member. Chase Haggard for that $1.99. Appreciate you. First Person Q, who gifted a membership to Toledo. Thank you to all of you guys. Really appreciate you. And hope everybody has a great, what is this, Saturday night? Watch some movies, read some books. Go chill with the fam. See everybody you need to see. And that's about it. So to play us out, here is Rooks G and a cut off his new album. Take it away. Shouts out to his family. And I really hope we can have a little more unity and a little more peace. So, shouts out to his family. Don't forget Edward Norton. First person you said Primal Fears is Edward Norton's last great performance. Don't forget his performance as Baldwin in Kingdom of Heaven. Great film, Ridley Scott. Or in Birdman that I did analysis of with our friend Chase. Sprockets.